Hi there, I'm Jen Hand. Welcome to this week's video. And I know what you're thinking. I just need more willpower. I just need more control, more self-discipline. I just gotta force myself to work harder at this. And what I want to tell you today is that it's not about the willpower. So think about this. Think about if you are at a work meeting or you're at a party and there's lots of goodies around and you're like, oh, no thanks, I don't want the cookies, I don't want the cake, I don't want the mozzarella sticks, I don't want the whatever. And so you've exerted your willpower, you're like, oh, I've refused it, awesome, go me. You get home and the next day you have to do it again, and the next day you have to do it again, sometimes multiple times a day, because in the world we live in, there's lots of sweets around. So what do you think happens after a while? You sort of just get worn down. You can't quite resist and use your own self-control to say, no, thank you, I don't want that. Because if you're relying solely on willpower, it's never going to last long term. So think about diets. Think about when you've used your willpower to cut out something, cut out carbs, cut out sugar, cut out whatever. You've done a juice cleanse, you've tried some crazy food plan, and there's always an end. There's always like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. Or there's always like, you get to Friday and you're like, Monday through Thursday, I've been so good. Like, screw it, I just can't do this anymore. So it's like there's always that end where you get to the last day, or not even the last day, and you're like, screw it, I can't have this willpower, I can't have enough control anymore. And you're just like, whatever, I'm done, I'm having whatever I want. So the secret here is that it actually isn't about willpower, because you don't want to have to rely on willpower for the rest of your life. How hard is that? You've got to it's just again and again and again, you are trying to resist or refuse based on your willpower. And the reality is that you want to not want it from the inside. You want to not have to control yourself. You want to not have to rule with an iron fist and be like, I'm not having that today. You want to check in with yourself and be like, no, I'm good. I can pass on that cookie, and not have it to be some sort of force that you're using inside of yourself to make you not have it. Does that make sense? So if it's not about the willpower, then what is it about? So there's three things that it's about. The first is balance. This is about balancing yourself and rebalancing your body to get to the place where you don't want the cookie, the cakes, the candies, the whatever. So if you're eating regularly and often, if you're not dieting, and if you're in the space where you're becoming a little bit more normal around your meals, around your snacks, around what you're eating, the natural byproduct of this is that you will rebalance yourself. And so a lot of the willpower idea where that comes from is when we're on a diet and we just got to have more willpower to cut out sugar, to cut out carbs, to stick to this plan. It's harsh, it's motivating, or it's critical. You're using that as your motivation. In reality, you want it to be about balance. You want to be so balanced physiologically, biochemically, your blood sugar, everything internally, that you don't want the cookie. And how you get to this balance is over time. So in 2 days, you're not balanced. It's a gentle process of being able to physically get back into the space where you are eating normally, and you are eating regularly, and you are eating often, so that you don't need the cookie. You can resist it from a place of softness and being gentle, just simply because you don't want it, not because you're forcing yourself not to want it. So the second piece that ties into this is allowing. So the more you allow, the more you give yourself permission, the more you make things not forbidden, the easier it'll be to not want the cake, the cookie, the ice cream. Because when you're allowing yourself, when you're giving yourself the space to enjoy, to take pleasure in your food, to really be in tune with what your body wants, and nothing is off limits, you don't need to get in 6 cookies today, because you can have a cookie again tomorrow. So a lot of times it's like the Last Supper effect. It's like, oh, there's a buffet you're at, and you have this reunion scheduled, and you've saved up all week. It's Friday night, and you're there. You're like, okay, I've got to get in everything I can, because tomorrow I'm starting over again. And when you allow, and when you're not in this space of going on and off, and you're not in this space of forbidding things because you are trying to exert your force, you're trying to exert this sense of, I can't have that because it's not healthy, it becomes this place of openness and this spaciousness where the cookie loses its charge, the ice cream loses its charge, the buffet loses its charge, because there's no like frantic sense of, I've got to get this all in today because tomorrow I'm not allowed to have it anymore. And what this does in terms of your willpower is that you don't have to rely on willpower anymore. So let's say every day there's cookies on your table, and the first day you're like, I'm allowed to have a cookie, and you have 2 cookies. The second day you're like, I'm gonna have another cookie, and you have another cookie. The third day you're like, I'm gonna have another cookie, and you're enjoying it. You're not eating at it. You're not having guilt. You're taking pleasure from it. And the fourth day you're like, oh yeah, I've had cookies 3 days in a row, and actually I just don't want the cookie. So it's sort of, you see how it's not about the willpower. And when food becomes allowed, it loses its charge. And what happens is that you don't rely on willpower. It's just from a place of inside yourself. You're like, yeah, I could pass on that cookie. I've had it 3 days in a row and I just don't want it. The third piece that plays into this is focus. And what I mean by focus is that, let's go back to the cookie example. It's not a free-for-all. You're not eating the whole plate of cookies because tomorrow they're forbidden. You focus in that you take the cookie, you sit down, you enjoy it, you're mindfully eating it, you're slowing down, you're savoring it, you're like, this is really delicious. And then maybe you have another one or maybe you don't, but you're focusing on on tasting, on savoring, on enjoying your food. And it's not this race to the finish. It's not this frantic sense of trying to get everything in today so you're not having it tomorrow and relying on your willpower again. It's you're focusing on each meal as it comes up, you're letting it go when you're done, and you're moving on to the next part of your day. So focus and willpower are not interchangeable. So when I say focus, I mean a gentle sense of, I am being present with this meal. I am sitting down and being in this experience of eating so that I'm focusing on what's in front of me. I'm not thinking about, oh my gosh, if I eat this, I'm gonna have to run later. If I eat this, I have to make up for it later. If I eat this, I've gotta get it all now because I can't have it tomorrow. There's no like sense of just being in this whole mind game of back and forth and this and that and run and not run, exercise, cookies, not cookies. Like, it gets exhausting. And so you're focusing and being present with the experience, because when you're present in the experience, when you're allowing, when you're not feeling guilty, you are enabling yourself to be in the experience of having your food and moving on when you're done. And as you focus more and more and allow more and more and become more and more balanced, you see how the three of them all tie together? You rely less and less on willpower. And that's the long-term goal of this. It's not that you do it once and then you never have to rely on willpower again, or you're fixed and all of these things come into, all tie together and then like you're done, yay, balance, focus, and allowing. It's sort of, the more you focus on any three of these things, the balance, the allowing, or the focus, did I say that? The more you focus on these three things, balance, allowing, and focus, it allows you to rely less of your willpower to get through the day. So just remember, it's not about the willpower. It's not about white knuckling. It's not about forcing yourself to not eat it or to adhere to a rigid, strict plan. It's about rebalancing yourself physically. It's about allowing more and more of all foods to be on the table, no pun intended, and to not be forbidden, and to focus on being in the eating experience and savoring it and taking pleasure from your food, so that each of these plays on the other and builds on the other, so that you don't rely on your willpower long term. So I'd love to hear from you. Comment in the below comments around what you're going to focus on this week. Is it the balance? Is it the allowing? Is it the focus? Where are you going to put your attention to begin to build the foundation so that you rely less and less on your willpower? So I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments below, and thanks for tuning in.